We're going to talk about monohybrid crosses now, and monohybrid crosses is we're going to talk about complete dominance. So there are three types of ways in which genes are inherited. More than three types, but three types that we can characterize and actually be able to predict in biology. And one is complete dominance, incomplete dominance, and codominance. So, for example, with incomplete dominance, if you get for roses, if you get a red gene and a white gene, not you, but if a flower gets a red gene and a white gene and creates a flower, it's gonna be pink, and it mixes. But complete dominance, it only expresses the dominant gene. So, for example, if I have a brown-eyed gene and a blue-eyed gene, 100% of the time I'm going to have brown eyes. That's going to be my phenotype. And the genotype is brown and blue-eyed together. So that's what your genetic makeup is. It's just with complete dominance. The only thing that's expressed is a dominant gene. If you have both recessive genes, which is, I guess, quote-unquote, the weaker gene, then that's going to be expressed. However, if there's a dominant gene and a recessive gene, only the dominant gene is going to be expressed. So let's go ahead and talk about albinism. I don't even know what word I was about to use, but so there's pigmented, and you always characterize these crosses with the dominant gene. So I just called it pigmented because albinism is a hereditary condition in which there's less pigment being made. There's a little bit, but skin color is going to be white, eye color is going to be very light, and hair color as well. So the pigment is not being made but maybe this is the first time you've heard this, but pigment is what makes color in skin and eyes and hair and so forth. So what you do when you actually cross these, and we're looking at two heterozygous individuals who have an offspring. An offspring is a baby is produced by a sperm and an egg, and that's a fertilized zygote that begins to divide, and pretty soon you have a ball of diploid cells, and pretty soon you have an individual if we're talking about mammals, you have an individual in the mother's stomach, and then that becomes an offspring. Okay, and an offspring is a baby that's basically the product of conception. All right, so let's go ahead and have a look at this. So again, there are two heterozygous individuals, and that means that they're carrying the pigmented gene and the albinism gene, and both of them are. So what we're trying to find out is what the ratio, what the percent probability that somebody has albinism is, if this scenario ever occurred. Okay, so what I'm going to, gosh darn it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this down, and then I'm going to move this over. Maybe Google Slides wasn't the best option here. And then I'm going to move this over. Okay, whatever. So that's going to be big P, big P. And the question is, what percent of the time will albinism actually be expressed? Well, that's 25% of the time, as we can see it here. Let me circle it. Here, that's the only time. The reason why it's not being expressed in these two boxes is because pigmented is a dominant gene, so you will not see albinism at all. But these two individuals would be a carrier of albinism, and this person is homozygous dominant, so they will be pigmented and will not carry the gene at all. And just remember, there are 23 pairs of chromosomes, so each chromosome has two genes. And it just depends on which is dominant and which is recessive. Again, like skin color, for example, is codominant, so it blends together, or curliness of hair and so forth. There are other examples, but that's just a quick run through of complete dominant monohybrid crosses.